The 3D printing slicing software you use is a crucial step in the creation of your 3D printing projects. The software is used to set up every print before it goes to be 3D printed, so it is best to use a package that you like. There are many different choices out there to choose from, and I will show you some here today. Let's get started. But before I reveal the 3D printing slicing softwares that I've used and am currently using, I'll first go through what a slicing package is. Slicing a 3D model translates the model into a language that the 3D printer can understand. This language is referred to as a G-code. This G-code can be understood by the printer to create your 3D models. The G-code contains the instructions or pathways that your 3D printer will follow. It will determine how the printer head will move, how much it will print, how much the nozzle will extrude, not extrude, how much will over extrude, everything during the printing process. These paths are instructions for the geometry, so that by following the path of the code, the printer will eventually create your 3D model in real life. It is very similar to how a CNC lathe or CNC mill works in a precision engineering workshop. A model is sliced into layers set by the layer height in the 3D printing slicing software. Those layers then have a path created for the nozzle head to follow. Where there is a geometry or infill on this path, the printer will extrude the required amount of filament, and after a few hours you will hopefully have your 3D model. Now that you know what a slicer is, let's have a look at your choices. Hobbyists often use basic and free slicing softwares. If you're working in an engineering workshop, you might be using a more professional package for much more expensive printers, but this all depends on what you're making and the printers you are using. Currently, my go-to slicer is Prusa Slicer. I find I can do a lot more model manipulation like cutting and layer height changes in Prusa Slicer compared to other slicing packages. But that's only because I do a lot of test prints on certain parts of my designs. I wouldn't need to print the entire model now, just a small piece of it, so I can do some tolerance checks. So Prusa Slicer works great for me. You, on the other hand, might just want a slicer that will just create your G-code and print away. Cura will be great for this. Find the right size for you will take some trial and error. I used Cura for 2 years before I tried Prusa Slicer, and a lot of my first attempts in Prusa Slicer were an absolute disaster. But thanks to other creators in the 3D printing community, I was eventually able to make it work. So why Prusa Slicer? Prusa Slicer is an open source 3D printing software. The package is constantly being updated to improve the user experience and, most importantly, to add new features like improving overall print quality and speed. Now, I love Prusa Slicer because it has some amazing features like easy slicing and cutting of the 3D models that you put into the viewport. For tolerance checking, this is great. Also, it's easy to add filament changes. Right there in the slicing software, you can see where the filament changes will occur and at what time. This can really help you to visualize how the model will actually turn out and how it will be affected by the change in filament. It's also cool because you can change the color, so you can get a good idea of what parts will be in what color as well. It definitely has the easiest model cutting that I've seen so far in a slicing package. You know, you just rotate it and just cut, keep the upper lower part. It's easy. This is, as I said, this is great for anyone who is working on just wanting to print out a small part of that model just to check. And next up we've got Cura. Cura is probably the most beginner-friendly software that I've used while I've been 3D printing. Its interface is super friendly and allows for a very quick pickup time. Not to mention the amount of material and YouTube content online to actually learn the slicing software is absolutely massive. It's definitely the easiest software to fall into as a beginner, so I think it's a great start if you haven't actually looked into your slicing software choices yet. Cura also has a lot of add-ons built on by 3D party developers that can really enhance your slicing operations. I certainly had no issues with it while I was using it, but I think there comes a point where you want a little bit more, and certainly Prusa kind of offers you a bit more easier slicing. It's a little bit quicker. You can also do a lot more cutting kind of on screen. Let's say if you wanted to cut a model in Cura, you have to go into an add-on and change certain parameters, whereas in Prusa it's just you just drag the plane to where you want, cut, keep upper or lower. It's much easier. But Cura for beginners, Cura as a slicing software for just creating your G code is absolutely fantastic. So if you're interested in easy to use software, use Cura. Personally, I would start with Cura, and once you become a bit more familiar with that slicing software, you should probably then migrate to Prusa Slicer. Once I actually managed to get solid prints with Prusa, I found it to be much better than Cura. Both of them are very different in terms of their user interface layout and require some knowledge before you actually start using them. So I would suggest YouTubing how to actually use the interface in both the packages first. I also found that Prusa to be much faster in terms of computing the slicing time, and that really helps if you're making minor changes to your models. Ultimately, it's up to you to try and find the best slicing software for yourself. One software that you might try might not be the best fit depending on the features, time it takes to slice a model, and the quality that you get out. So you just have to try other slicing softwares and see where you stand. Personally, I think starting with Cura and migrating to Prusa later on when you're more comfortable with slicing models is the best way to proceed. But having the ability to actually use both gives you a good base for slicing your models going forward. 3D printing is a journey, so pick the best slicer that you feel most comfortable with. It will really improve your time in this hobby. My name is Ethan. If you've liked this video, consider giving it a like, and if you want to see some more content, consider subscribing. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.